Man, I did not expect a CD Projekt Red filled week, but here we are yet again talking about the company and some very interesting changes that are heading its way, updates on current IP like Cyberpunk, as well as The Witcher 4 even. I mean, there's a lot to go over. Earlier this week, we talked about the biggest update to land for Cyberpunk 2077, pushing past 40 gigs. I'll have that linked in the description down below, a full breakdown of that, 500 plus changes. And later this week, we're going to talk about DLC and leaks for Cyberpunk 2077. So if you like The Witcher, you like Cyberpunk, you're interested at the very least, I wouldn't blame you if you don't like them when it comes to CD Projekt Red. I'm your guy, we like RPGs here. Do consider subbing up. But today, we go over what CD Projekt called the strategy update for the entirety of their company. So they talk about the expansion of their IP, the future of them as a company, their marketing campaigns, and much more, really addressing some particular controversies that have been happening for the last couple of months, as well as ways to make things better for consumers. Now, of course, you don't need to take all of this at face value and believe every word they are saying. Let the actions speak, but the game plan here, I think, is a relatively sound one. So let's get into it, a full breakdown here, starting off with what they call Red 2.0. So they separated this into a bunch of sections. Red 2.0 is the starting of that, where they want to strive to improve the work environment. The way that they described improving the work environment later on in this video was emphasizing the comfort of their employees through inclusiveness and diversity, being open to all forms of communication, and empowering personal developments and ambitious projects. Going back to Red 2.0, they said they want to expand their talent pool, aka hire more people, take lessons from past marketing campaigns, which we're going to get into in a little bit. This one's one of the most important ones. They plan to serve 2 franchises, being Cyberpunk and The Witcher, and they do all of this to streamline their brand new development process, which will allow them to work on 2 AAA games at the same time. This all connects to what they say is the Red engine, which we are all familiar with, and that's to serve The Witcher and Cyberpunk. What they've created is called cross-functional teams that will work on both games and share valuable data learned about the engine to aid in both projects. The aim is, once again, the parallel AAA development, which they want to start by 2022. All right, let's pause there. What that seems to heavily indicate to me is, of course, The Witcher 4. Now, this has not been some type of mystical rumor. CD Projekt Red has been pretty open that they want to continue something along the lines of The Witcher. I will say this though, okay? I view how CD Projekt Red is going to treat The Witcher as how Bethesda treats Elder Scrolls, right? If you've been a Bethesda fan for a while, you'll know that Bethesda did a good job with Fallout off the rip, and then after that, I feel like they sort of wavered a bit with Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, whereas with Elder Scrolls, it's been kind of pretty consistent bangers as far as I'm concerned, and so I'm wondering if with The Witcher, as it ramped up really with The Witcher 2, I adored The Witcher 2, and then 3, of course, was phenomenal, and then you look at how Cyberpunk came out, I worry sometimes that we're going to see that similar treatment, that almost, like I call it, favoritism. But anyway, more importantly, yeah, it's a no-doubter that The Witcher 4 should be something that's going to happen. I think this makes complete sense for them, not only because they had a lot of issues with Cyberpunk and they want to create maybe a bit of a separation there, but also The Witcher 3 is well and truly what put them on the map. While they were making great games before that, and even after that, no one talks about Thronebreaker, hardly anyone talks about The Witcher 2 anymore. CD Projekt Red was put on the map thanks to The Witcher 3, and now it had a resurgence thanks to the Netflix Witcher series. So they know that's their cash cow, they know that's their baby right there, that's what got it all started. There's a special love for that franchise, so of course it's natural to expect more, but it seems like they're really ramping things up so they can continuously develop for both these franchises. Why is that a good thing? Well, you see here, a lot of companies take on way too many IP, and then one ends up going dormant at some point in time, and it becomes a very long stretch of time before you see anything. And I'm not talking the normal 3 to 4 year development cycle. I'm talking about you, Rockstar. I kind of want Bully 2 at this point. I don't know if y'all know that yet. But anyway, a lot of companies end up absorbing all these IP and then abandoning them. So I kind of like this idea of being able to work on The Witcher and work on Cyberpunk at the same time and creating a whole development cycle for that. Now, here's where I think most of us are really going to care, speculation aside, is that the marketing and PR campaigns are going to start closer to the actual launch of their games. Wow! However, new projects still might be teased early on. Here's what we're working on. When campaigns do start, they said they aim to properly manage expectations across all platforms and also do showcases on all platforms. So yeah, this is something that's going to be really important, that last part, because CD Projekt Red broke a lot of trust with the way they showcased Cyberpunk. While the PC version came out all right, when it came to the console version, it was not indicative of what anyone had seen. And also when it came to the review copies, myself and many others only got PC codes. No one was distributed a console code. This is something that has happened in the past before. A lot of people aren't aware of that, but a lot of companies have said, here's only a PC code. Just CD Projekt Red happened to be the one who released one of the most broken console games we've seen in a very long time, and only did PC codes. So it shined a brighter spotlight on the really big issue with the review process. It's already hard enough getting one code for a game. Being able to get multiple codes, I've never had that happen before. And being able to test for multiple platforms, I've never had that before. But that's a testament to how broken Cyberpunk 2077 was on the base consoles like a PS4 and Xbox One. So of course, with all that in mind, we need to take a look at the marketing campaign itself. So they're taking the route that a lot of companies have adopted since about 2015. We saw Battlefield do it, where pretty much you announce your game and then it releases about 5-6 months away. And that type of stuff is great. Of course, this started with Fallout 4, but since then, a lot of companies have adopted it because it's shown, hey, there's this surge of excitement. It's just all information crammed in this next 5 months to release, and that keeps people interested for a long period of time. So for me personally, I like this. I've always thought it's the surefire way to go. If you're like an indie studio, announce and release your game within 3 months. If you're a AAA studio, do it within 6 months because you have more resources to market your stuff. You want to keep that window as short as possible. So I like that. Most importantly for all of us, hype aside, because I'm sure people are going to try to control their hype from the next CD Projekt Red release, is that they are going to try to be more fair with how they showcase their stuff. I like that, but once again, a lot of this stuff we need to see in practice, but it's good that they've once again acknowledged it and are making an active effort on where they want to take things in the future. They also talked about annual roadmaps being a thing at CD Projekt Red, so they showed off a roadmap for both Cyberpunk 2077 and The Witcher. When it comes to Cyberpunk, they're going to do patches and updates, free DLCs, and a next-gen update. Now note, there is no mention of future expansions, which is different from the free DLC. There was a full leak, one that I have an entire dedicated video on that I have recorded and it's ready to get edited, but I wanted to get this information out first. We'll break all of that down. But of course, patches and updates are the main point of focus here for Cyberpunk 2077, as well as the next-gen update. They said that The Witcher is also going to get a lot of focus in 2021. They want to release The Witcher Monster Slayer, which for those who are unfamiliar, is kind of a Pokemon Go style Witcher game, except you're hunting down monsters outside. So I'll look into that when it comes out, but personally, I'm not super interested in it. There is also The Witcher 3 getting a next-gen update. That's coming in the second half of 2021, so keep an eye out for that. We'll be reviewing that and checking in on it. And there's going to be further development of Gwent. What I always found interesting here, and I get why they wouldn't mention it, but there's never any talk of Thronebreaker. None. Even when they're bringing up Gwent, they never talk about Thronebreaker. When they showed the expanded materials of The Witcher, nothing on Thronebreaker. I don't know if that game was like a spectacular failure internally, but that is one of the most wonderful games that CD Projekt Red has made. If you haven't checked it out, this was, pre-Cyberpunk days, so it's okay. You'll be all right. It's worth a look. But anyway, they've created this roadmap, so we have a good idea of where both franchises are going, and that full AAA development for both franchises is going to continue and really start in a parallel manner in 2022. They also made sure to emphasize that they want to release the next-gen update for Cyberpunk 2077 once the quality of the game is as it should be on all other platforms. So this is something that could easily get pushed back with all of the bugs and glitches that are in Cyberpunk, and this first fix here, the really big one, did address a lot of issues there, and a lot of people are having some positive impressions. Of course, the NCPD system, now it's like anti-aggressive, like you can commit 40 crimes and not get harassed, so this seems to be a constant back and forth, but for the most part, it seems like there were some really solid fixes in here. So as they continue to implement more patches like this, we will likely see that release of the next gen update, but I could totally see it getting delayed if more issues kind of crop up for the full game itself. Here was one of the more shocking reveals during this entire strategy update, that they have reached an agreement with Digital Scape, who I went on their website and they supported games like Cyberpunk 2077, Dying Light, Company of Heroes, Dead Rising, Mass Effect, Prototype, and more. So they're a support studio, and they have worked with CD Projekt Red since 2018, and now they are known as CD Projekt Vancouver. So they have been acquired by the company, and CD Projekt said that they're more open to opportunities like this in the future. I thought that this was very interesting because a lot of people, I don't know where these rumors come up from, but a lot of people said CD Projekt Red was going to be bought by Xbox. And look, I know that they were struggling really bad after launch, but people forget very frequently that GOG is a thing, and that makes them a ton of cash. They have their own digital storefront. It's like their own Steam, right? It's like Valve and Steam, just not as big, but it's one of the more reputable PC platforms where you can get games DRM free, and there are plenty of people who shop there exclusively, and I don't blame them. So it makes sense why they as a group are going to continue to expand. And I think obviously if they were hurting from everything that was occurring from Cyberpunk 2077, this deal would not have gone through, or at least not been announced right away until they figured out if this was something that was safe to commit to. So they're doing just fine, and they've expanded to another studio here. It's going to be a support studio. For those of you who are familiar with game development, I mean, there are plenty of companies out there who announce side studios who will do support work. Think of it like Arcane Leon, and then you got Arcane Austin, right? You have two studios working on different things, but they'll help each other out as well. Same thing's going to happen here. It seems like there was a relationship there since 2018, so it looks like this was a pretty safe buy for them. Further solidifying that CD Projekt Red will remain independent, they said at the end of this video, but I think it's more timely to talk about it now, that they plan to continue to self-finance game development. So once again, if they were really struggling, you'd likely hear about them reaching out to a publisher of some kind. I know Warner Bros. Helped out with some of the publishing when it came to Cyberpunk 2077 in certain areas. So you'll see their logo on the copy of some of your games. So it's not like they're going to go full on crazy independence, but the fact that they're funding their own development, that's the key word there. Self-financed development. That's where it gets important, because while the CD Projekt Red board has really pushed some bad decisions when it came to Cyberpunk, I feel like getting even more suits involved could prove to be a bigger problem. So hopefully, and I'm not really hoping too hard here, by the way, hopefully they've learned their lesson. I'm not going to sit here, you know me, I'm an optimistic guy, but I'm not going to sit here and be blindly optimistic. But hopefully they have learned their lesson. And what I'm hearing so far, a lot of this stuff, I do have to say I liked. But there is more. This is the one part I did not like all too much. They said they want to build out their franchises through core gaming extensions like mobile, and partnerships such as a TV series, merchandise, you know, with stuff we've seen in the past. They say that RPGs will always be the core of their experiences, but they want to continue to diversify the offerings with said RPGs. So that brings us into online experiences, which they say, quote, enrich their IP, end quote, which I think is more like enriching their pocket. They do stress that AAA RPGs are not changing, but they do want to bring online elements in games where it makes sense. They don't want to go overboard and lose the single player audience. Famous last words, all right? I have never seen a company try to do the online model lightly. There is too much money to be made. Look at GTA Online. Look at so many companies that followed suit. Look at Destiny. Look at how the companies have followed suit, okay? I do not ever imagine a company saying, we're doing online elements and doing it generously. Call me skeptical. Call me I'm in a bad mood. I'm not. I'm in a pretty good mood. I'm just saying it as it is. I really do not trust this. I do not at all. Especially with the way they tried to do, and I called them out for this prior to Cyberpunk. A lot of people breathed down my neck over it, where they were talking about microtransactions and saying we leave the greed to others. And then it turns out there were going to be microtransactions in the Cyberpunk multiplayer, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. And I don't know, man. I mean, the way they walked back on it and said, well, actually, we're going to have microtransactions. Come on. I mean, they've already walked back on it once, and I feel like I could totally see an overextension here. I think the best case scenario is we get something like Ghost of Tsushima Legends. Phenomenal multiplayer expansion for a already amazing single player game. That's how you do it. If you've got the money and the backing like someone such as PlayStation, that is how you do it, because it added so much to the package and fortified that, hey, this is an absolute Game of the Year pick for me. And for sure, more people bought the game, more people came back into the game. Once again, tip of the cap to Sucker Punch. That was a really cool, unexpected surprise. So CD Projekt Red takes that route, for sure. That will be cool, but I don't know. Ghost of Tsushima Legends really clicked with people because it was the first time we saw something like that in years. Now, I talked a little bit about Cyberpunk 2077's online component, and here's what they had to say about the future of that.
Previously, we hinted that our next AAA would be a multiplayer Cyberpunk game, but we have decided to reconsider this plan. Given our new, more systematic and agile approach, instead of primarily focusing on one big online experience or game, we are focusing on bringing online into all of our franchises one day.
Now, they didn't say canceled. It's not canceled, but it's being backburnered for damn sure. And this is actually a really good choice because, of course, this allows them to focus on things like fixing the game. I think they understand that if they want to milk the Cyberpunk cow, you got to get the cow working in the first place. So that is something that I will say good. All right, good. They're going to focus on getting the patches, the updates, the free DLC, the expansions, and then they can seemingly shift their attention to online integration. But it also looks very much like this is going to be a separate thing. I don't think it's going to be a part of Cyberpunk 2077 at all. I think they're completely redoing how they've approached this, and more than likely rolling it into a sequel, not being just a separate thing on its own, because I think that may actually hurt the game a lot more if it ends up being another component of Cyberpunk 2077 that comes out broken, or it comes out in a way that's really not as consumer friendly. At least there's a refresh period for Cyberpunk and for maybe some Witcher stuff where we can see CD Projekt Red gain some momentum again, give themselves some breathing room more than anything. So this is a decision that absolutely makes sense. I have to say I would have anticipated this if it was anyone other than CD Projekt Red, but it's a good choice on their behalf, I think. I don't believe most of us watching this video were anticipating an online component for Cyberpunk unless the base game was as phenomenal as a lot of people expected. I still thought it was amazing, but of course it came with a lot of issues that really made it hard to say like, hey, this is so good, or hey, this has a lot of potential here. So I think a lot of the excitement for the multiplayer component came from expecting the single player would be good, but now they understand that priority. So I think that is a encouraging sign at the least. And to do all of this, they are developing new online tech to implement into their game, and to conclude it, they revised the goals at the end. So they're moving from single player to single player and online. They're doing genre bending AAA RPGs, so not just an RPG, but an RPG with shooting or an RPG with action, and expanding their IP beyond gaming. So ultimately, that was the roundup for the strategy update for CD Projekt Red as a whole, from their development pipeline to the future of their IP and how they're going to do things with marketing, studio acquisition. So a lot here, and I gotta say, some encouraging signs throughout, and they're saying the right things, but that's what CD Projekt Red has always been good at, is saying the thing that you wanted to hear. So it's gonna be about action. It's gonna be about them taking a stance and making sure that they follow through with that stance. So we're seeing, for example, hey, we're going to take better care of our employees. Then I sure as shit hope I don't see a Jason Schreier post on Bloomberg about how you're mistreating your employees internally, forcing someone from the studio to come out and make a write-up about what's happening with the employee treatment. So yeah, with all of that, I wanted to go ahead, round it all up for you in today's video. It's your turn to sound off. What do you think of all of this? Fire away in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. Do consider supporting the Patreon for all these crazy Cyberpunk videos. It continues to fuel all of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.